The first light of dawn crept through the blinds as Jenny Millers tied her hair back with practiced efficiency. 29 years of life had taught her the value of routine. Small apartment. Simple life. Just her and the faded photographs of a father long gone. Jenny slipped into her worn blue uniform, the fabric softened by countless washes. Her fingers traced the embroidered Rosie's Diner logo, a promise of warmth in this corner of Kansas where the highway met small-town America. By 5:30 a.m., she was tying her blue apron, her movements automatic after 7 years of service. The diner smelled of coffee and possibilities, a place where truckers found respite and locals shared gossip over pancake stacks. "Morning, sunshine," called Mark, the manager, as he counted yesterday's register. His smile never quite reached his eyes, but Jenny returned it anyway. It was early October when she first noticed the boy. He couldn't have been older than 12. Thin frame, oversized backpack, and eyes that seemed to carry more weight than any child should bear. He slipped into the corner booth, the one with the torn vinyl that no one wanted. The first day, he ordered only water, opened textbooks, sat until it was time for school. The second day, the same. By the third, Jenny had developed a system. "Kitchen mistake," she'd say, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs and toast before him. "Just gonna throw it out otherwise." His eyes darted up, uncertain, then back down. He said nothing, but when she returned, the plate was empty. Soon, it became their unspoken ritual. A pancake with a misshapen edge. A burger that was accidentally made without onions when no one had ordered it. A bowl of soup that was extra. The boy never spoke beyond "thank you" and "water, please." But Jenny noticed how his shoulders relaxed a little more each day, how his hollow cheeks gradually filled out, how sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, the ghost of a smile crossed his face. She never asked his name, never inquired about the absence of parents or why he arrived so early before school. Some questions didn't need answers. "Same time tomorrow?" she'd ask casually. He'd nod, gathering his books, disappearing into the morning light. And that was enough. By late October, the pattern was established. The boy arrived at 6:15 a.m., precise as clockwork. Jenny's mistakes appeared at 6:20 a.m., accompanied by her casual explanation. It was Kathy from the kitchen who first confronted her, cigarette dangling from her lips during their shared break behind the diner. "You know that kid's gonna disappear someday," she said, exhaling smoke into the crisp autumn air. "They always do. You're setting yourself up." Jenny shrugged, watching a leaf spiral downward from the old oak tree. "Maybe. Kids these days," Kathy continued, flicking ash onto the pavement. "Always wanting handouts." Jenny said nothing. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Mark confronted her the following week, spreadsheets in hand, a furrow between his brows. "Food costs are up," he said, tapping his finger against the numbers. "Specifically, breakfast items. Specifically, during your shift." Jenny met his gaze steadily. "I'll pay for it." "Out of your tips?" "Yes." Mark sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "Jenny, you barely make enough as is." "I manage." "Your choice," he finally conceded, "but this stays between us. Corporate would have my head." The dental appointment she'd saved for, canceled. The winter coat she'd been eyeing, forgotten. Small sacrifices for small mercies. Regular customers began to notice. "That's the third time this week I've seen you feed that boy," observed Mrs. Henderson, voice hushed conspiratorially over her usual tea and toast. "Shouldn't his parents be taking care of that? He one of those welfare kids?" asked Dave, the truck driver who stopped every Thursday. My taxes probably already feed him lunch. Kids today expect everything handed to them, muttered another customer, loud enough for Jenny to hear. Each comment stung, but Jenny continued her silent routine. She remembered the gnawing emptiness of her own childhood, waiting for free school lunch, sometimes the only meal of her day. The shame of opening an empty refrigerator. The art of making hunger feel normal. She remembered her father, a janitor at the local high school, who would bring home leftover cafeteria food wrapped in napkins. Never let pride stand between a hungry child and food, he would say, though their own table was often bare. One morning, as whispers followed her through the diner, Jenny nearly faltered. The boy sat in his usual spot, eyes downcast. She hesitated, plate in hand. Their eyes met briefly. In his, she recognized something beyond hunger. A quiet dignity, a silent battle. She placed the plate before him. Pancakes came out too thick, she said, her standard excuse. His soft, thank you, drowned out all other voices. Later, as she counted her diminished tips, Kathy shook her head. You're a fool, Jenny Millers. Jenny smiled. Some kinds of foolishness were worth the cost. The first day the boy didn't show, Jenny assumed he was sick. Children caught colds, missed school, stayed home with soup and blankets. Normal. The second day, she glanced repeatedly at the empty booth, the minute hand of the clock ticking past 6:15, then 6:30, then 7. By the third day, concern crept in. She placed a breakfast, no longer disguised as a mistake, at his empty spot anyway. When it grew cold, she wrapped it carefully, tucking it into her bag to leave at the corner where she sometimes saw him turning toward what she presumed was home. The food remained untouched. Days stretched into a week, then 2. The corner booth remained empty, yet each morning Jenny prepared a plate. Routine had become ritual. Ritual had become prayer. Told you, Kathy said, not unkindly. They always disappear. Mark noticed the food costs dropping back to normal, but said nothing. Just a questioning raise of eyebrows that Jenny answered with a small shake of her head. By the third week, someone had taken a photo of Jenny placing food at the eternally empty booth. It appeared on the town's community Facebook page, Waitress stages fake charity for attention. Comments accumulated, questioning her motives, suggesting it was all performance without audience. Jenny, who barely maintained a social media presence, learned about it from the whispers that followed her through the diner. Regular customers who had watched her silent charity now viewed her with newfound suspicion. Always thought there was something off about it, Mrs. Henderson remarked loudly to her companion. Who gives away food without posting about it these days? Had to be for show. That evening, Jenny opened the small wooden box where she kept her father's belongings. Among them, a worn journal, its pages yellowed with time. She'd never fully read it. The grief still too raw even after 5 years. But something compelled her now. Her father's handwriting filled the pages, detailing his days as a school janitor. Between accounts of broken thermostats and graffitied walls were observations of children. The one who wore the same clothes 3 days straight. The girl who searched cafeteria trash for unfinished meals. The boy who arrived before anyone else to escape the cold. And alongside these observations, records. Half sandwiches left where hungry hands could find them. Spare change, accidentally, dropped near a child counting pennies for milk. An extra muffin from his own lunch, shared without comment. One entry stood out, dated shortly before his fatal heart attack. Gave away half my lunch again today. Martha would say, I can't feed every hungry child. She'd be right, of course. But who said anything about every child? Today, I fed one. Tomorrow, perhaps another. Anyone who gives away half a loaf will never be truly poor. Tears blurred Jenny's vision. She closed the journal, holding it against her chest like an anchor in a world suddenly turbulent with doubt. The next morning, she arrived earlier than usual, prepared the booth, set out a fresh glass of water, placed a plate of eggs, bacon, and toast, no longer disguised as a mistake, but an offering, an act of faith. Mark approached, concern etched in the lines around his eyes. "Jenny, it's been 3 weeks. Maybe it's time to—" "He might come back," she interrupted, wiping down an already clean table. "And if he doesn't?" She considered this, remembering her father's words. Then someone else will need it instead. "The internet's having a field day with you, you know," Kathy mentioned during their break, "saying you're making it all up for attention." Jenny smiled faintly. "Funny thing about doing something quietly. People can't believe it's not for show." As November's chill settled over Kansas, Jenny continued her morning ritual, despite the empty booth, despite the skeptical glances, despite her own dwindling hope. Because some promises, once made, couldn't be broken, even those unspoken, made only to oneself. On the 23rd day of the boy's absence, Jenny arrived to find frost delicately etching patterns on the diner windows. Winter was announcing itself early this year. She began her opening routine, the weight of expectation lighter now, though she still prepared the corner booth out of stubborn hope or habit. She no longer knew which. The rumble of engines drew her attention at precisely 6:12 a.m. 4 black SUVs with government plates pulled into the parking lot, their synchronized arrival cutting through the morning quiet like thunder. Jenny froze, coffee pot mid-pour, as men in military dress uniforms emerged from the vehicles. A distinguished man with silver hair, clearly their leader, scanned the diner's facade before his eyes settled on the door. The bell jingled as they entered. The few early customers fell silent. "Jenny Miller's?" the silver-haired man asked, his voice gentle despite his commanding presence. She nodded, setting down the coffee pot with a hand that refused to remain steady. "Colonel James Reeves, ma'am. Might we have a word?" Fear flickered through her. Had she somehow broken a law? Was the boy a runaway? A fugitive? The colonel reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope bearing an official seal. "This is from Brigadier General Thompson of the Special Operations Command." Jenny accepted it with trembling fingers. Inside was a handwritten letter, formal yet deeply personal. "Ms. Millers, you have been providing meals to my nephew, Adam Thompson. His father, my brother, Staff Sergeant Michael Thompson, was killed in action 4 months ago. Adam's mother couldn't cope. The boy has been staying with me, but grief affects us all differently. He stopped eating at home, started leaving early. We didn't know where until one of my men followed him. For weeks, you fed him without question, without recognition, without reward. You did what we couldn't. Reached him when words failed. Adam is currently at a specialized grief counseling program. He wanted you to know he'll be back. And we wanted to thank you personally." Jenny looked up, tears blurring her vision, to find the diner now filled with uniformed service members. In perfect unison, they rose and stood at attention. "Ma'am," said Colonel Reeves softly, "sometimes the smallest acts of kindness reach further than you know. Some people simply do small things each day. They serve meals, pour water, open doors. They don't need to know who you are. They only know you're hungry today." Jenny didn't save the world. She just kept a promise to herself. Never let someone leave hungry. Because true kindness requires no name. It asks for no recognition. It seeks no reward. It simply responds to what it sees. The beauty isn't in grand gestures that everyone witnesses, but in quiet moments when no one is watching. And though these acts may seem small, the way they touch others is eternal.